Hi everyone, today a Mobius cowl. 2 ways of joining. Method 1, the easiest way. Your knit work stays on the loom. Grab the cast on part and twist it once. Look at the side to the cast on and search your first stitch. That's what you do here. So you watch and you put the stitch on the loom with the first stitch on the loom. Look for the other stitches and put those on the loom too. You can already put the 2 stitches of the cast on the loom, but it's easier when you do that later. You know for sure then you have the right ones. And this is more quick. Ready? You see a space in between, like gaps. So that's the reason to put these on the loom too. When you've put the last one on the loom, you continue doing a cast off as stretchy as possible. Here you have put it all the stitches back on. You knit 2 stitches. Watch closely that you have 3 stitches on your hook and knit over. This is because you join 2 pieces. So you grab 3, knit over, second stitch with the first stitch. You knit over the stitch that is below, and then you put it back to your knit work. And you continue doing this until there's no stitch left. There's also a video on this channel demonstrating how you do this the right way, if this is too quick for you. Almost ready? Then you put the second with the first stitch and you knit over. So that's what you do here. Second stitch, you knit over, you put the second stitch to the first stitch below and then knit over. Cut off your working yarn finger length. Grab your hook and pull the threads end through. Now you have a cast off edge. Like I said, to do this that way, your cast off is almost as stretchy as your knit work. Disadvantage of this manner is that you see and feel a seam, so you have to wear it with a seam to the inside of the cowl. The second way, a more difficult one, but you don't see or feel a seam. You start with casting on a contrasting color and you knit around 6 rows. So this is a double E-wrap cast on, and I'm demonstrating it with a few stitches, otherwise the video will be quite long. Later I will show you how to untie this and join the 2 parts. I'm already knitting the garter stitch, and there's also a video of doing the purl stitch on this channel, demonstrating this quick way. I have knitted this cowl with garter stitch. The knit stitch is an E-wrap and the second stitch is a purl stitch. So you knit 1 row of E-wrap and one row of purl stitch. My knit row starts and ends with an U-wrap and in between E-wrap. Purl row is only purl. Later in this video I will show you why. At this moment you cut off the yarn and you put the other color to it. I'm doing it this way, but if you use to another way, be my guest. My purl row is always from the right when doing garter stitch. I like that better. There's also a video regarding the garter stitch on this channel. I continue with a knit row. First and last are U-wrap and the rest is E-wrap. So this is my E-wrap row, and at this point you join the colors with a square knot. I always do this after 2 rows so the tension is better and you don't get any gaps. This cowl is knitted in E-wrap and purl, and I didn't use U-wrap. The first E-wrap stitch is like half a stitch and your last stitch is plain E-wrap, so difference is in elasticity occurs. So that's why I do 2 U-wraps instead. I didn't use slip stitch because I don't like the look of that with garter stitch, but of course if you like it you can do that. Of course use a slip stitch, it's personal. The stitches are still on the loom, and wrap your working yarn around a few times and then cut off. You create a long tail, long enough to sew a whole row in between. You join it with a needle and thread. You grab a piece of scrap yarn and put the stitches on it. When knitting a Mobius, you start with a purl row and end with a knit row, or the other way around. That is the most beautiful way of joining. Otherwise you see 2 knit or 2 purl rows appearing. Put the stitches on a lifeline, or like I said, a piece of scrap yarn. Nice and gently, don't pull the scrap yarn through. The piece in the contrasting color you are going to take off the actual cowl. So you put the stitches back on the scrap yarn, and you take another piece of scrap yarn, also long enough, and you cut a strand of the contrasting color and untie that a bit and search closely for the stitch. You are separating the 2 colors now. Where you see the purple coming out, there's your stitch. Pull your needle through. Take care it doesn't slip away like I do here. You have to search a bit, but when you find out how to do it, it will work fine the whole row. You can pull your stitch out with the scrap yarn, untie the purple yarn so it's more visible what you are doing. So you just untie it a bit, like you see here, and you just follow. Here's where the needle came out, so please be gentle. Just follow the purple yarn. And this is what you do a whole row long, nice and gently. Take it out and put it on the needle. You might even grab 2 strands of the scrap yarn and then pull it out a bit. And when you take a closer look, you can also see, you can see the V shapes and the ribs, so you have to take the same stitches. Sometimes at the end of this row a stitch has disappeared, but that's not a problem. Glad it happens over here, so I can show you what to do when it happens. Pull nice and gently, untie it. Let me show you how. At first you are going to count the amount of stitches after you have untied this. You might even cut another strand of the purple yarn and you just take it off nice and gently. As you can see, this is not a stitch, this is just a piece of yarn. Now let's get it off, and then we are going to count the stitches on both sides, so on both pieces of scrap yarn. I miss one, as you can see, and you see a thread's end comes out of one V shape, as you can see. That's over here. Put thread's end on the needle and back into that V shape, so you have your stitch back, and put it on the piece of scrap yarn. Now you are ready to start with the Kitchener stitch. Thread your needle, twist your scarf one time, twist it that way that the sides with the ridges will match. If you combine the two V-shaped sides, you have to sew a purl row in between. A knit row is easier, so combine the two ridges. The working yarn you had twisted that was long enough, thread it on your needle and you cross over to the other side and pull the needle through. Unfortunately for the video my scrap yarn is hard to see. I'd better have used another color, but watch closely to the scrap yarn. You can also use the ridges. The stitch above the ridge is your stitch. Watch your tension while sewing. Make every stitch as big or small as the ones around it. Watch closely where the working yarn is coming from. You might pull a bit so you see it. So this is your working yarn. You just pull it and you see where it's coming from, and that's where your needle is put it. And this is in your old stitch, and then you go to the new stitch. Just put that piece of thread's end out of the way. You don't need that yet. If necessary, grab the scrap yarn on both sides and lift the stitch. This is what you do the whole row. This is the most beautiful way of joining two parts or panels making clothes. This is how you can join the shoulder parts of a sweater or a cardigan. You have to practice it. You can even practice with two swatches before using it on your knit work, so you know how it's done. Pull every now and then at your scrap yarn to make life easier. As long as you do it nice and gently, and just watch closely what you do, and I'm certain you will manage to do this. So now only a few stitches and you have finished it. Pull your scrap yarn out of your knit work. Check every now and then. Okay, this is where you pull a bit of your scrap yarn to make life easier. and you continue in the old stitch and into the new one. And after doing this a few times, I'm certain you will recognize and you will know what to do. Now we're almost at the edge. This is your last stitch. You pull the pieces of scrap yarn out. You check if your edge is straight enough. So like the way you see it over here. And this is your last stitch. Check your edge. Yeah, you see it's not straight. Then you cross over one more time, find a stitch in a row and pull through. And now it's straight, as you can see. We're going to weave in ends, twice a knot, so you're sure it's attached properly. Weave in ends, like the way you are used to. Cut off the yarn, and I suggest you just do it like you normally do. That's the best way most of the times. And as you can see, there's no seam at all, so it's become a real infinity cowl. That is why this is a beautiful method. It doesn't matter how you put it on, the other thread's ends you weave into. When one is too thick, you separate them. You pull one through a stitch and you join them with a square knot. Either you weave them in together or apart. When your thread ends is too short, first pull your needle through the fabric, put your thread into the needle and pull it through and cut it off. And now your Mobius cowl is ready to be worn. Hope you enjoyed watching and hope to see you next time in another video. While still weaving ends, cut off the yarn and you see your Mobius cowl is really an infinity Mobius cowl. So again, bye bye and hope to see you next time.